let us know about some famous scientists who changed our view about the world with their wonderful discoveries. Albert Einstein. There's probably no physicist living today whose name has become so widely known as that of Albert. Einstein mostly famously developed the theory of relativity for which he received the Nobel Prize in Physics. Light from behind a black hole was spotted, proving Einstein right in July 2021. He is also known for developing the equation E is equal to mc squared, which means energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. General relativity also is the bedrock of gravitational lensing, which uses the gravity of stars and galaxies as a giant magnifying glass to zoom in on farther cosmic objects. Astronomers may soon take advantage of such physics to see geographic details of worlds light years away. His greatest insights came not only from careful experimental analysis, but simply considering what would happen under certain circumstances and letting his mind play with the possibilities. Einstein remains the last and perhaps only physicist ever to become a household name. Marie Curie. Despite her French name, Marie Curie's story didn't start in France. Her road to Paris and success was a hard one, as equally worthy of admiration as her scientific accomplishments. At the University of Paris, Curie was inspired by French physicist Henri Becquerel. In 1896, he discovered that uranium emitted something that looked an awful lot like, but not quite the same as X rays, which had been discovered only the year before. Intrigued, Curie decided to explore uranium and its mysterious rays as a PhD thesis topic. Eventually, she realized whatever she was producing, these rays was happening at an atomic level, an important first step to discovering that atoms were in the smallest form of matter. It was a defining moment for what Curie would eventually call radioactivity. Around the same time, Curie met and married her French husband Pierre, an accomplished physicist who abandoned his own work and joined his wife's research. The two started examining minerals containing uranium and pitchblende, a uranium rich ore, and realized the latter was 4 times more radioactive than pure uranium. In 1903, Curie, her husband, and Becquerel won the Nobel Prize in Physics for their work on radioactivity, making Curie the first woman to win a Nobel. In 1911, Curie won her second Nobel, this time in chemistry. She remains the only person to win Nobel Prizes in two different sciences. She died in 1934 from a type of anemia that very likely stemmed from her exposure to such extreme radiation during her career. Isaac Newton changed the way we understand the universe. He discovered how gravity worked and the three laws of motion. He also invented the calculus. We all know that he discovered gravity when he was sitting under a tree and an apple fell from the tree. But do you know that this apple tree is alive till date and after over 400 years? It is attended by a numerous number of gardeners. It is secured with a fence and cared by the National Trust for Places of Historic Interest and Natural Beauty. Isn't it amazing? We know about gravity today due to an apple tree. Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin would not have been anyone's first guess for revolutionary scientist. As a young man, his main interests were collecting beetles and studying geology in the countryside. Darwin's observations implied a completely different process. He noticed small differences between members of the same species that seemed to be dependent upon where they lived. He published a 500-page book in 1859 on the origin of species. In non-technical language, the book laid out a simple argument for how the wide array of Earth species came to be. It was based on two ideas: that species can change gradually over time, and that all species face difficulties brought on by their surroundings. From these basic observations, it stands to reason that those species best adapted to their environments will survive. Nikola Tesla. He was known as the wizard of industrial revolution. He is perhaps known best for his eccentric genius. He once proposed a system of towers that he believed could pull energy from the environment and transmit signals and electricity around the world wirelessly. But his theories were unsound, and the project was never completed. He also claimed he had invented a death ray. Tesla claimed to have accidentally caused an earthquake in New York City using a small steam powered electric generator he had invented. And Tesla didn't actually discover alternating current as everyone thinks. It was around for decades, but his ceaseless theories, inventions, and patents made Tesla a household name, rare for a scientist a century ago. And even today, his legacy still turns the lights on. Well, he's known as the discoverer of the cosmos. Around December 1, 1609, Italian mathematician Galileo pointed a telescope at the moon and created modern astronomy. His subsequent observations turned up four satellites, massive moons orbiting Jupiter, and showed that the Milky Way's murky light shines from many dim stars. Galileo also found sunspots upon the surface of our star and discovered the phases of Venus, which confirmed that the planet circles the Sun inside Earth's own orbit. The 45-year-old Galileo didn't invent the telescope, and he wasn't the first to point one at the sky, but his conclusions changed history. Galileo knew he had found proof for the theories of Polish astronomer Nicolaus Copernicus, who had launched the scientific revolution with his sun-centered solar system model, also known as the heliocentric theory. Even today, the sea of numerical formulas typically on physicists' blackboards suggests the Pythagorean maxim: all is number, an implication that everything can be explained, organized, and in many cases predicted through mathematics. The Pythagorean theorem proof doesn't just work sometimes. Most of the time, or when the stars align, it works all the time. Pythagoras' legacy includes the scientific hallmarks of pattern, order, replication, and certainty. She is best known as the Enchantress of Numbers. To say she was ahead of her time would be an understatement. She earned her place in history as the first computer programmer, a full century before today's computers emerged. She couldn't have done it without British mathematician, inventor, and engineer Charles Babbage. Their collaboration started in the early 1830s when Lovelace was just 17. They two started working together. Babbage abandoned his difference engine to brainstorm a new analytical engine, in theory, capable of more complex number crunching. But it was Lovelace who saw that engine's true potential. The analytical engine was more than a calculator. Its intricate mechanisms and the fact that the user fed it commands via a punch card meant the engine could perform nearly any mathematical task ordered. She even wrote instructions for solving a complex math problem. Should the machine ever see the light of day? He is known as Math's Mystery Man. Pythagoras, a 6th century BC Greek philosopher and mathematician, is credited with inventing his namesake theorem and various proofs, but forget about the certainty. Babylonian and Egyptian mathematicians used the equation centuries before Pythagoras. Moreover, Pythagoras students often attributed their own mathematical discoveries to their master, making it impossible to untangle who invented what. Even so, we know enough to suspect Pythagoras was one of the greatest mathematicians of antiquity. He was born in southern Sweden in 1707. He was a botanist and taxonomist at the Natural History Museum in London. The 18th century was also a time when European explorers were fanning out across the globe, finding ever more planets and animals near science. Today, we regard him as the father of taxonomy, which is used to sort the entire living world into evolutionary hierarchies or family trees. He gave us a system through which we could talk about the living world. Rosalind Franklin. In 1962, Francis Crick, James Watson, and Maurice Wilkins shared the Nobel Prize for describing DNA's double helix structure, arguably the greatest discovery of the 20th century. But no one mentioned Rosalind Franklin, arguably the greatest snub of the 20th century. Franklin was also a brilliant chemist and a master of X-ray crystallography, an imaging technique that reveals the molecular structure of matter based on the pattern of scattered X-ray beams. Her early research into microstructures of carbon and graphite are still cited, but her work with DNA was the most significant, and it may have won three men a Nobel. Hey there, a small message from Tiptop Facts. If you've watched our video, then please like, share, and hit the subscribe button for us. See you next time.